Welcome to the extra episode. This is where all of the dust that didn't make it into episode -2 is going to settle. This is the collection of stuff that was either too deep, too tedious, or just really off track. And that primary video is going to go. Ideally, I'm planning on making one of these for every single main Unaka City video I produce. Though I suppose we'll see how consistent I am, because there's definitely a whole lot of extras that got left by the wayside in this and then the follow-up historical video. And when I go into the present and future possibilities for Unaka City, I'm not sure what will and will not be left by the wayside. But the first thing to note is that this video is going to be a lot more rambling and not scripted. The main Unaka City videos are all scripted, but this one, I hit record and go, and then, we'll see. All right, so the first thing that I want to talk about that got left by the wayside is the USGS Maps. Now, these are maps produced by the United States Geological Survey. This is a fantastic government agency. Go here to their website, store page, find maps by location. Actually the map locator tool, and here you go. You can look at maps of the entire United States and even parts outside of the United States, so who cares about that. I want to show you the really nice features of this tool, these maps, by going to Knoxville, Tennessee. Now, the USGS has divided the world into 7.5 minute by 7.5 minute sections, and each of these is uniquely identified: Knoxville, Bearden, Footman City, Fountain City, whatever. So let's look at the Knoxville map. So view products, and you can see that we have got PDF maps from 2019, 78, 66, 58, 53, 42, 36. Like the one of the most fantastic parts of this website is the cataloging through history of these places. So you could compare the 1936 map to the 1978 map, and it is the exact same location at the exact same scale. I have pulled up the 1936 map right here. If you zoom out a little bit, we can see just how different this place looks to what it looks like today. So this map shows you in intricate detail what these places used to look like in the past. So here, we've got Interstate 40, 275, this highway, that name I forget, this dumbass highway, you've got all these different things. You can also see the University of Tennessee having spread out and sprawled. But if we go to the map here, we can see very different city. Very extensive rail yards, rail stations. University of Tennessee only is in this corner, and everything else is, private housing and stuff like that. This level of historic detail is available from, cities and rural areas from San Francisco to New York City. And this is the first thing I wanted to talk about, because these are the maps that I based my historic city, Unaka City, off of. There are parts of the city that are based off of Knoxville here, Chattanooga, Nashville, Charlotte. And in this first part of the city, I wanted to just kind of explore Unaka City and compare it to these parts of the historic maps. And also I wanted to share these maps as a tool for anyone wanting to build a historic city in cities' skylines. All right, so let's start by looking at downtown and look at some of the inspirations for this. This was primarily based on Charlotte, with its pretty well-maintained rectangular grid, though with some major differences. So here, I did not maintain the grid nearly as well as Charlotte's grid is maintained. And then I also decided to have a kind of a fun and classic courthouse square situation. This is based up primarily off of the courthouse square found in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Though these kind of things exist in a lot of small towns across the South and across America, really. Directly adjacent to downtown is the primary rail station. And in fact, in both Charlotte's case and Unaka City's case, the rail station and the direction of it inspired the grid. But there's also the pretty large rail served industry adjacent to downtown. That was inspired by everywhere. Every major U.S. city at the time had a large industrial district directly next to downtown. And in many cases, these industrial districts still exist and are still being used for less use, but certainly still being used. Also next to downtown is North Hill. This was based off of an area in Knoxville where a road breaking off from the grid and forming a new diagonal line. In Knoxville's case, it is from the old L&N station going to the northwest. It is Broadway. In our case, it is from the Union Station, and it is Union Street. Once it gets far enough away from downtown, it then forms a new grid. And in this case, this is the primary black neighborhood in town, though in Knoxville that is not the case. I also just thought that the whole city, or the like school square, is kind of a cool thing that breaks up the road. But if we zoom out, we can just look at the whole streetcar suburb layout in general. And this was inspired primarily by the way that the streetcar suburbs fan out to the southwest of Nashville. The Hillsborough neighborhood, the area around Vanderbilt campus, and whatever the other neighborhoods are called around there. It escapes my mind currently. Just the way that they fan out and just the way that they look, in which you've got, pockets of commerce, such as near the university here, or just, along the streetcar line, that you've got very densely packed houses, and then you'll have a few businesses. But we can also see another inspiration that I took from Nashville. If we just turn the camera there. West Unaka is based off of a neighborhood that got absolutely demolished in Nashville. Now the Ellington Parkway and 65 pretty well cut it up. But it was a primary black neighborhood of Nashville, though I haven't come up with the demographics of West Unaka here. Adjacent to it, we can see Franklin Square, which was based off of an area in Chattanooga, though I did add a bit more commercial than that neighborhood probably had back in its heyday. Overall, you can see that one of the fantastic parts of City Skylines, and just part of the reason I love this so much, is the way that you can mix and match things, take a little bit of column A, take a little bit of column B, and then suddenly you've got a whole new city that is a unique thing. And I did that also for each of the satellite towns, Boonville, Knoxburg, Hadestown, and Clinton, and then to the south with Lilac Park and Blair Station. I'm not going to go into those with as much detail, but each of those was based off of one or maybe two or three small towns around Tennessee and North Carolina, and like really just looking at what unique things are pretty fun about that town, and then bringing it into cities' skylines. And once again, by taking so many unique things and mixing and matching, it's really just really fun making something that I can call my own. If I were to change anything, and I don't know if I would, but if I were, the only thing that I kind of have regrets, especially as I've moved on and started even working into the future parts of Unaka City, is that this really realistically needed a second station. In all the cities that I've used as a model, there was the one station that had two or three railroads, and then there was pretty much always one railroad company that just didn't play nicely with all the others. So we've got the Union Terminal here, but then, in all likelihood, there'd be one, say, on the right-hand side of downtown, as we're looking here, that just, this railroad just didn't play nice, and so it decided to build a probably somewhat expensive rail spur into downtown. This will be relevant, as we will see in several episodes, as to why I wanted even more rail infrastructure in the city. But I actually think that just for a city of this size, there probably should have been a second station. But, oh well. that ship has sailed, and this is the city I've got. So this is the city I have to improve. I will say that in the next episode, when we move into the back half of the 20th century, I really did hate destroying the city. Like, I was really happy with how this looked. So then when I started adding highways and parking lots and all that stuff, oh, man, it killed me. I actually think that this is one of the cities I've built that I think would be fun to live in. Though, based on the time period, it probably wouldn't have been, because the pollution that you can see here, while a lot of people criticize it for being very cartoonish, definitely existed. All right, step behind the curtain with me. So, in my research, I could not find any proof that railroads such as the L&N, Southern, or the Seaboard Line actually ran daily commuter trains, other than one throwaway line in an article about the Music City Star saying that this is the return of commuter rail. I found mentions of rail passes that you could buy from city to city for routine travel, but I don't know if there was a regularly scheduled train that would take you from Murfreesboro to Nashville or Kannapolis to Charlotte in the morning and then would take you home in the evening. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was the sources that I used when talking about segregation in Unaka City. The most valuable source I found was this website, Mapping Inequality, Redlining in New Deal America. This is produced by the University of Richmond with help from students and faculty at Virginia Tech, University of Maryland, and Johns Hopkins University, as well as several individuals right here. These people, students and faculty, have put together an incredibly valuable resource about the history of segregation in the United States, with just a pretty fantastic map that allows you to look at the neighborhood level from Los Angeles to New York and everywhere in between. For the actual comments that I used, the paragraphs and the statistics I put up on the neighborhoods in Unaka City, I just copied that wholesale from two neighborhoods in Chattanooga. The North Hill neighborhood was this one right here. This is nowadays known as the MLK neighborhood, and I guess part of the Fort Wood neighborhood. These comments right here, and I just took and I changed some names. All of these statistics, the fact that the word Negro shows up all the time, I figured this is a historical context, and I felt like it was important for me to acknowledge the context that this was said and meant in. For the Johnson district, I took the East Brainerd neighborhood, or the Brainerd neighborhood in Chattanooga as well. And all of these neighborhoods have many comments that have been said about them, most of which are pretty uncomfortable to hear or outright offensive. Like, God, this. I highly recommend that you look up your own city here, assuming you live in one of these one of the cities that has been mapped out and has had the HOLC maps found and transcribed by these group of hardworking researchers. Though not all cities have descriptions. So Nashville here, for instance, doesn't have any descriptions found for it. Just the mapping, and then they did find some data. So if we switch over here to the polygon mode, no, never mind, they don't have any data. But, this is an incredibly valuable resource, and I found it incredibly useful when attempting to decide the demographics of Unaka City, and also to estimate how the lives of the people, particularly the lives of poor whites and blacks and even any sort of immigrants to Unaka City, how their lives would have actually been affected by the decisions made in 1952 and over the back half of the 20th century, is looking at these maps and seeing what the demographics and what the populations of these neighborhoods were like, and then, of course, comparing it to what's going to happen in the future. Because even in a place like Asheville, which is, I think, very comparable to Unaka City, we can see the opinions that people had about the people living in these neighborhoods, and then I can compare it with what has happened over the last, let's see, this would be made in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So over the last 70, 80 years of these cities and compare what is said. And like, some of this stuff is just pretty hard to read, in my opinion, but very important to acknowledge the reality of these situations. Also, some of these times, like, I'm a big fan of maps, and so even though these maps are about some pretty disappointing parts of American history, look, a good map is a good map, and I appreciate it nonetheless. So I just wanted to share this resource for people wanting to learn about history and even make their own city's history more realistic, but also as a way to let the viewers hold me accountable and make sure that I'm actually telling the truth, because that's what I always want to do. Just make sure that what I'm saying is in fact what actually happened, or at the very least is I have a reason for saying what I did, and I'm not just making stuff up wholesale. So this is the final resource I wanted to share, and I certainly hope that you all have enjoyed this video, in which I kind of go behind the scenes and explore how I made Unaka City and explore the resources that went into making Unaka City, and also that you guys can appreciate the episode itself. I plan on doing one of these for each video, as I said at the start, and also that hopefully this allows me to get like really nitty gritty and nerdy technical in the Unaka City videos, or in these videos, and allowing Unaka City to kind of be a bit more smooth and narrative and keep things both interesting while also keeping the facts and the informative nature of Unaka City there. All right, well, I'm clearly rambling, so thank you for watching this video, and I certainly hope that you learned a lot and that you at least had a not a bad time watching it.